And what is Donald Trump's response? Let's fire the person who tells the truth to the American people about the jobs numbers. So his personal economy is doing really well. But for average Americans, their prices are going up.
What if I told you the numbers you're hearing about the economy might just be made up? Adam Schiff claims Trump wants to replace truth tellers with loyal lapdogs. The fallout: stagnant job growth, rising prices, and chaos for everyday Americans. But it doesn't stop there. Could this dictator-lite approach push the US towards a global economic disaster? Find out what Schiff says is at stake for your wallet and the nation's future. Before we move on, I would like you to subscribe to the channel and like the video. What happens when the numbers don't fit the narrative? Well, in Trump's case, apparently you rewrite the story, or try to. The latest jobs report dropped, and to call it bad would be polite.
We're already seeing that reflected in the job numbers. These are the worst 3 consecutive months, basically stagnant job growth. Tell the public what Donald Trump wants to have the American people hear, regardless of the truth.
We're looking at stagnant growth, rising prices, and the worst 3-month stretch for jobs since the Great Recession, excluding COVID's chaos. But don't expect to hear that from Trump. He's already out here twisting the story, claiming the data is misleading, or better yet, claiming it doesn't matter at all. Reality has entered the ring with fantasy, and spoiler alert, reality is taking a serious beating. Here's the thing, a rough jobs report hits more than just numbers on a graph. It hits you, whether it's fewer opportunities to find work, slower wage growth, or watching the cost of your groceries and gas creep higher. A declining jobs market doesn't just sit quietly in the background. It intrudes into the lives of real people. And instead of addressing this with actual policy or acknowledging the hard facts, Trump's instinct seems to be rage quitting on the people delivering the bad news. Word is, he's reportedly talked about sidelining the folks who release the economic data, the ones whose job is, quite literally, to tell the truth, and replacing them with people he calls nice. In other words, people who will say what he wants them to say. Now let's pause for a second to appreciate what an unhinged idea this is.
The worst since the pandemic, and if you go before the pandemic, the worst since the Great Recession. Coming back, it is leaving. And more of the same is just going to be more hardship for the American people.
The whole point of having independent economic data is stability. Investors, businesses, and policymakers rely on that data being accurate. It's like a financial compass. Imagine you're about to book an expensive flight and the forecast says calm skies, but you find out later the weather report was fake and you're flying straight into a hurricane because some guy didn't want bad weather to make him look bad. That's the kind of chaos we're talking about if you start messing with the numbers. Trump's obsession with loyalty over competence isn't just about how the job numbers look on paper. It's about how it impacts your life. Hiring someone to make the math look good doesn't fix rising costs or boost job creation. It just masks the symptoms while the sickness quietly spreads. Think of it like throwing a blanket over a leaking pipe. The water's still there. You're just pretending the mess isn't getting worse.
And what is Donald Trump's response? Let's fire the person who tells the truth to the American people about the jobs numbers. So his personal economy is doing really well. But for average Americans, their prices are going up.
All the while, Trump's policies, like the corporate tax cuts or aggressive tariffs, stack the odds against average working Americans. Those policies might have padded Wall Street's pockets temporarily, but they undercut opportunities for actual job growth in industries that aren't billion-dollar multinationals. And it's not just today's paycheck you need to worry about. It's the ripple effects for years to come when foundational systems are treated as tools for propaganda. If you bake dishonesty into how your economy reports its health, you create instability everywhere. Businesses hesitate to invest, workers feel the pinch of layoffs, and the mess snowballs into something none of us want to deal with. Schiff's warning here isn't just about Trump's response to one bad report, it's about Trump's approach to governing, or let's be real, his lack of one.
So that we can put someone else there who will lie on the president's behalf. Look, these tariff wars, and we haven't even felt the full brunt because Trump keeps pushing the can down the road even further.
This brings us to an even bigger problem. America doesn't live in a vacuum. This doesn't just affect us here. It impacts how we're seen and trusted around the world. If you can't trust the numbers, you can't trust the nation reporting them. That's not just bad for business, that's bad for diplomacy. And while we'll really get into that global issue in a moment, for now, consider this. The chaos Trump seems comfortable creating doesn't just stop with the economy. It's creeping into the very institutions we depend on every single day. Imagine a government where the truth isn't decided by facts but by loyalty. Who's in the club and who's not? Now imagine how that plays out in your daily life. That grocery bill creeping higher every week, the collapsing trust in financial systems, the empty promises of jobs that never materialize. These aren't hypothetical issues. They're symptoms of a system where loyalty takes precedence over expertise. And with Trump's ongoing obsession with hiring yes men, it's not a stretch to suggest this scenario might hit closer to home than you think. Let's start with one of his favorite plays, stacking government positions with people whose main qualification is being loyal to him. Forget experience or capability. Howard Lutnick, a former Commerce Secretary, made it crystal clear when he said, the #1 requirement for any job in this administration is loyalty to President Trump. That's not a slip-up, that's the rule book. Now, swapping out professionals for sycophants sounds harmless at first. Who cares if some obscure bureaucrat gets replaced? But when those replacements are directly tied to critical systems that you rely on, it's no longer something you can ignore. And here's where it gets scarier. This isn't just about incompetence, it's about concentration of power. When loyalty ranks higher than logic, corruption thrives. History has given us countless examples of what happens when leaders prioritize allegiance over ability. Trump's approach feels dangerously similar to the beginnings of a kleptocracy, a form of governance where officials aren't chosen to serve the public, they're chosen to serve a leader. In these systems, corruption spreads like wildfire, benefiting the rich and powerful, while ordinary people are left holding the bill. Adam Schiff has been warning about this for years, pointing out how Trump's cabinet swaps aren't just clumsy, they're calculated. They pave the way for a government where truth doesn't matter, and the rules bend to fit whatever narrative he's selling that day. Sound ridiculous? Maybe. But when you look at global examples, it stops being a punchline and starts becoming a warning.
Tariffs on, tariffs off have created such uncertainty that employers don't know whether to hire people. They don't know what their costs are going to be. When those full tariffs are in effect, it's going to further suppress our economic growth and could send us into a recession.
And yet, Trump's tactics seem to be designed to make this mess harder to question. If you control who's reporting the information, you can control what the public thinks is true. Let's call it what it is, propaganda-lite. And once you've blurred the lines between truth and lies, the real impact goes far beyond one bad jobs report. It trickles into institutions you count on every day. Imagine weather predictions manipulated to keep disaster responses politically convenient. Imagine public health data tailored to line up with re-election goals instead of, saving lives. It all sounds extreme, something out of a satirical novel, but this is where things appear to be heading when loyalty is elevated over logic. This approach doesn't just make the system inefficient, it makes it dangerous. Schiff's warning boils down to a harsh truth. Trump's policies don't just hurt economically, they twist the foundation of democracy itself. If the only truth that counts is what a leader dictates, then checks and balances crumble fast. The US could start looking less like a functioning democracy and more like the corrupt regimes Trump seems to admire. It's not just about economics anymore, it's about what kind of country we're becoming. If America's institutions keep bending to loyalty tests, we're not just risking a broken economy, we're flirting with the collapse of democracy itself. Schiff warns that when trust in data and justice falls apart, the ripple effects hit everything. Your wallet, America's influence, even its identity. And let's face it, replacing expertise with flattery might keep Trump's ego intact, but it leaves the rest of us paying the price with rising costs and fewer opportunities. It's time for Americans to demand truth and accountability, because if Congress doesn't step up, we're the ones left cleaning up this dangerous, loyalty-fueled mess.